Mixing with Mike plugin of the week comes from Relab Development. It's the Relab 176 Tube Compressor Limiter. It's a mouthful and it's a handful. It's a pretty heavy duty plugin here, particularly on the CPU. If you purchase the plugin straight away, they'll recommend that you have some kind of a silicon chip or an upper level processor. What I have found, because I'm working still on Intel processors, but on a pretty heavy duty Mac Pro, is that placing it on straight on an audio track actually seems to work pretty efficiently. But if you place it on a mix bus with a sizable mix, then it tends to give some issues here and there. So that might be a consideration. But if you are considering buying the plugin and you don't have the horsepower to kind of handle it, make sure that you demo it first to make sure that it's going to work on your system. If you're working with any kind of silicon chip Mac, then you should be a-okay. This is an emulation, actually, of a retro hardware emulation of the Uri 176 compressor, built by Bill Putnam, going way back, 50s, 60s. It is a Verimu compressor. It is a predecessor to the 1176 in that it has a fixed threshold design. You'll see a lot of similar characteristics in terms of the attack release knobs, input-output gain, fixed thresholds, your driving input, balancing output, as a way to pass through it. And what Relab has done here is they've done a kind of component-by-component modeling and done something probably a deeper level than what you find. There are other companies that have done component level modeling. I think one of the more difficult things has always been CPU power, and the fact that a lot of vintage gear is going to respond differently based on program material. So it's hard to sort of nail it down to a singular algorithm, as the incoming content will play a great role in the way that it responds. And so this is some of the sticking points for those that are talking about how plugins don't match the hardware. There's a whole other level to that because it's in a digital environment, not in an analog environment, so you don't get all the other analogness that plays a massive part in that as well. That's a whole other subject. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts here, though, of the plugin emulation as we have it here. So we have our kind of input-output controls. Here, let me get rid of the tooltips there. Sorry, meant to do that. Input, output, right? So that would be just like an 1176 or just like the 176, the original Uri version, Universal Audio later. The attack, right? And then remember, left is slow, right is fast. Same thing with the release. We have all of that. We have the compression ratio. Now, this is true with all of the 1176 and 176 units, is that the knee changes as you go through the different ratio settings. And this is a bit of a kind of a classic vintage compressor type of thing. So you've got a softer knee with a 2-to-1 ratio, give you a bit of a smoother sounding compression. That's what you would expect from a 2-to-1, but a big part of that is the knee. As you go up higher in ratio toward 12-to-1, then you get a harder knee compression, and it sort of progressively goes across. What they recommend is that if you target about 4 dB of gain reduction, which you'll see in the meter up here, and you switch between the different ratios, then you'll pretty consistently get gain reduction with all of them. So if you've gone through a thing where you decided 2-to-1, you kind of get a sound that you want. It's like, oh, what does it sound like at 4-to-1? And then the compression goes away. That's because the knee is changing. It's not picking up the gain reduction as early, right? So there's a whole thing with that. Now, in between the input and output knobs, there's a couple of things here. One is a staging here, or a stage coupling, and on the retro hardware, there's actually a bypass switch for the transformer. So I think it's something along those lines there, where you get here you're adding the transformer stage. Here is it a diode stage? I can't remember. A resistor path, right? So this will actually change the sound when you go to the setting that is the transformer, it will actually make the attack and particularly the attack time much faster. Whereas you go out, if you take that off, you'll get a bit of a smoother attack and release. So there's some options there. There's also a very interesting thing here, which is the sidechain polarity. Normally, with compressor designs, what they do is they rectify the signal, so they convert it into a DC signal, right? Combining, positive polarity and negative polarity, using that as a singular signal to trigger. But here, what you have is that as a default, right in here, so it will operate both. You can also have it so that it only responds to signals above, right, your zero line, right, that are positive. So if your signal is actually in phase, right, so the transient is sticking up, not downward, then setting it to this will give you a bit more responsiveness to the transient. And in that same case, you would get a bit more RMS response if you switch to the other one. And otherwise, it would kind of give you a balance of the two. So that's kind of an interesting one that also kind of shapes the sound and the tone. There is sidechain filter, wet-dry control. You can link the controls between the left and right. It will operate in mono, like a dual mono in this case, because it's 2 channels, stereo or mid-side. There's also a sidechain link here. So this will give you the ability to kind of offset how much the side chains affect each other. If it's at 100%, then the side chain will affect both sides equally. It effectively monos the side chain signal, and that gets fed to both sides, so both will give you equal gain reduction. As you go progressively here, left and right information will trigger the gain reduction independently, and then you get all the variance in between. So we have all of those things. There's an output gain control here, which is just a digital path output gain, no coloration or anything after all the compression and stages, everything else. We have meter controls here, meters rather, that control input, show you gain reduction or output, so you can see it on the VU. If you click on the little Relab button here, then what it does is it opens up some tweak pots that are internal to the hardware unit. And essentially what we have is a bias circuit for the 2 different types of tubes. I'll kind of zoom in here. So we have a 6BC8 bias control, a 12AX7 bias control, right? So that will effectively decide how much you're driving the tubes. So as you drive that up, it will actually increase gain reduction, give you more saturation, different tonal colorations. We'll kind of go through a little bit of that. And then there is a 6BC8 anode control. And this basically tries to balance out, or the idea of this is to balance out the negative and positive polarity signals within the tube circuitry itself, so that you're not getting thumping. I guess probably the closest thing would be sort of a DC offset type of thing. Then there's a reference level. This is an important one because this will allow you, just with the straight setup, to calibrate the input-output as it kind of passes through the system. So without adjusting the gain controls here, because this can, in the hardware forum, you have 2 hands. You can actually adjust the input and the output at the same time. You can do this with some, controllers. So if you have some hardware, controller that allows you to control the different settings, 2 at a time, if it allows for multi-touch and, all of that sort of thing. Otherwise, you could just adjust this and it would be effectively a similar type of thing. The calibration control, and the reason why I held off on that is that this is effectively like calibrating these 3 or turning these 3 settings up or down. So this will affect the amount of gain reduction. It will affect the amount of saturation, negative or positive, right? So you could drive, give yourself more headroom. You could drive it, give yourself a little bit more gain. And then there's a meter display in here, which will show you gain reduction on a time display. There's a gain reduction here that will show you a gain reduction input-output level for balancing, and the rest is audio examples. So I think we got the basics here. Let's start by just kind of using the reference level to sort of set our straight up just gain reduction here. Maybe target, 2 to 4 dB of gain reduction, something along those lines. We'll play with the settings and see what we can do with it. We'll start with a 4-to-1 ratio. I just got some drums lined up here like I usually do. Let's see what we got. Right, so I could use the sidechain filter there a little bit to kind of balance out the amount of kick drum versus snare. No, it's actually the snare that's triggering, so I take that off. Oh, there's one other setting here. There's a fixed and an auto setting. It defaults to auto setting. Don't want to forget that. This also just puts the sidechain filter on or off, so you can A/B it to see what works better. Fixed will give you exact numbers for what the settings are for attack and release. The auto will actually make it program dependent. So that will give you a kind of smoother, based on the program material. You could decide whether you need something fixed, or if you're doing it like on a full mix, usually the auto setting will be a little bit more forgiving if the stylistically the song sort of changes from aggressive to less aggressive, or more sustaining from a transient section or a busy rhythmic section. Let's dial this in. Right, so sounds pretty good. Just one other thing here that is kind of fun here. I'll just drive a little bit. Let's just drive the calibration up or down just to kind of get an overall an overview of that. Actually, before we do that, let's just kind of go through some of the different ratios, just so you can kind of hear catch a bit of the difference here. Or actually, two things. Let's go to the stereo coupling first, and then we'll go to this. Then we'll go to the calibration settings. Right, so it almost feels like I have to set up a different threshold kind of thing here. So let's dial that in. Right, so there's a little bit of a gain difference there too, but what you'll primary here is like how much more aggressive, how much softer the resistor path is versus the transformer path. That was one of the primary things there. Also, just to check, so we'll stay with this. Let's just go with the auto setting just to hear the difference there. Right, so that actually smooths out the sound a bit, as you would expect. So depending upon what role the part plays, you may want to go more towards a smoother setting. That would probably be very effective for vocals, where you're going from faster phrases to sustained notes and things along that nature. Let's go through some of the ratios here. I think I have enough gain reduction, but let's just kind of see here. Right, so you'll hear it here, and I'll have to make an adjustment here for it a bit. But you hear how this is like much crisper sounding, that kind of harder knee that sort of sharpens the edge of the, or focuses the edge or the corner of the transient is kind of the way I like to think of it. Right, so you could hear how that kind of softens it. This kind of gives it like a kind of crisper edge, you know. I'll stay with the 4-to-1, but just to kind of get an idea, that's like a big part of kind of making this kind of work and getting into all the subtlety of it. So there's a lot to kind of dig into here in terms of the way that you can really shape the tone and character of the sound just by kind of going through some of the different settings. And this offers a lot of flexibility as you work with different program material, work with basses, work with vocals, and the like. Let's see what happens here as we drive the calibration up or down, just tonally. Obviously, we get to more aggressive compression, and we can kind of work with the individual controls. Right, add like a lot of edge and kind of excitement in energy into the sound, driving to 12AX. Let's drive the 68C or 6BC8, right? Right, as you would expect, as you start to drive it more, you're getting different flavors of harmonic activity, a bit more presence here. I think this is even order harmonics here, and then the anode here, a little more subtle, but check this out. And you can hear that little pop when they kind of reset it, so that's like the whole thing, so, and there's probably a lot of interrelationship between all the different settings. So a lot of tone shaping capabilities. The reference level is a very handy one to kind of have here. I'd say I pretty much work with this with the VO meters off and sort of just with this displayed, just being able to work with it. And then there's the sidechain link, right? Right, so one gives you a more monocentric sound with the gain reduction being equal. One gives you a bit more of a stereo spread. In this case, it kind of works with the toms sort of being spread out a bit. Let's focus just a little bit on bass here for a second. Kind of pop this up. Here I had like a slow attack and a kind of fastish release. Using the transformer, no auto gain, 2-to-1. More smoother style compression, and let's just kind of see what we have here. Oh, one other thing that I didn't get to here that's worth looking at is the sidechain polarity. So here, I'm going to switch this off, make this a little bit more, well, let's see what happens if we drive it a little bit more transient, with the positive side of the polarity, not transient. Let's not be, I won't be specific about that, but we'll hear that more effectively with the drums, but just to kind of get a basic idea of it. See how that's more sharper? This is more balanced. This is warmer sounding. This, like, there's so many ways to shape the tone. It's really, really amazing. Let's just kind of let's do one other thing with the vocals here, and maybe I'll mute out these other tracks here for a second. Call up this sucker, and let's see what we got going on here.
Running fast, but
Maybe I'll go here to the first verse without the harmony.
calling out,
Let's see. Normally I would have like a slower attack.
calling out, reaching out. I can't wait to see your face. Running free from reality. I'm on my way to be with you.
So let's go to the auto setting here.
Calling out, reaching out. I can't wait to see your face. Running free from reality. I'm on my way to be with you. Calling out, reaching out. I can't wait to see your face.
So the little 12AX7 there to kind of give it a little bit of presence. That's pretty cool. Let's just kind of go to a higher ratio here.
Calling out, reaching out. I can't wait to see your face.
Maybe make it a little more present here.
Running free from reality. I'm on my way to be with you.
Or go to a warmer tone.
Calling out, reaching out. I can't wait to see your face.
Looks like most of the signal is above. All right.
Calling out, reaching out. I can't wait to see your face.
Very smooth and musical.
Running free from reality. I'm on my way to be with you.
And you could also hear here with the resistor path how it's a little bit more balanced sounding, whereas the transformer path added in kind of gives it a little bit more warmth. So just to give you a quick idea, this is a pretty powerful tone controlling unit. It's so much more than just the compression itself. And this really dives into the art of compression, where you're really digging into all of the settings and all of the subtlety of the different settings in the character. And this is really about as close as I can think of anything that really reminds me of the way analog gear responds, where there is so much more responsiveness organically to the signal that's feeding into it. Like it seems to actually really feed, and it's not like adapting to the input signal, but its responsiveness obviously is going to be based on what program material is feeding into it. And then with the different tonal shaping options here, with the ability to tweak the bias circuitry of the different tubes for the varamute compression, the way to control the sidechain polarity, the stage coupling, right, with or without the transformer to decide whether you want a cleaner path or whether you want a warmer path, the overall calibration control. This is a pretty powerful unit. Really, really good. Definitely worth checking out. If you got the horsepower in your computer, go for it. If you have an Intel Mac or some other Mac, Windows computer or something that is not as modern, maybe you want to download the demo of it. I think they have a 30-day trial, and you can check it out to see whether it just stops everything in its path. If you get something you like, you can always freeze the settings. That's the other part of it. This is a maybe a door or a window through, or a door through which we're going here, which is going to really take advantage of the higher stages of processing or processing capabilities that are out there now. And if this is like a kind of preview of what's to come, then there's a lot of good things that are going to be happening down the line here as this kind of evolves. So definitely worth checking out. Plugin of the week from Relab Development. It's the Relab 176 Tube Compressor Limiter. Check it out.